Welcome to the Genius Talk podcast. I'm your host Atul Raj from the bestemailmarketer.com, and today we have Russell Van Brocklen with us. Russell, thank you so much for joining and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, brother. So, for our listeners who don't know you, can you tell them who you are and what do you do?
Well, what I do is I found a solution for dyslexia. What happened to me is I went to the New York State Assembly internship program in the late 90s because I wanted to know how law works or created. And I showed up with a first grade reading and writing level. It would not have worked. They were thinking about getting rid of me. The speaker's office said no. So they did an extraordinary accommodation after getting a committee together. They pulled me out of the legislative office building, put me into the Capitol itself, into the Majority Leaders Program and Council's office, and they didn't deal with undergrad interns. They literally run the assembly day to day. I had a tremendous internship there because they had 3 administrative assistants who could help with my horrific writing. For the academic portion, I gave a presentation, a very long one for hours instead of a paper. They recommended 15 credits of A minus. Goes back to the political science department at the State University of New York Center at Buffalo, who hated the accommodations the New York State government came up with itself. So they flunked me. 15 credits of F.
What
Yeah,
after
I
that?
went to law school to learn to read and write. Remember, I have a first grade reading and writing level. That's like a 6-year-old. I go in, my second day of contracts, I'm called on. Instead of being squashed like everybody else, I argued with the professor for 15 minutes as his equal, not as a student, like another law professor. I couldn't beat him. He couldn't beat me. Within a month, I learned to read. Within a few years, I learned to write. I went back to the New York State Senate. I said, I want you to fund my dyslexia research project. They said, we don't do that. And a couple years later, I got them to do it. In a public school, 1 class period a day for the school year, we took the most motivated, the most intelligent high school juniors and seniors, think 16 to 18. They're writing like they're 12 or 13, 1 class period a day for the school year. They increased their writing to the average range of entering graduate school students. They bypassed high school, they bypassed college. They all went on to college, they all graduated, GPAs of 2.5 to 3.6. It cost the New York State taxpayers under $900. We were 3x as successful as the most successful dyslexic college at the time for less than 1% of the cost. And that's how I got started.
That's really great. So, today we're going to talk about something special. So, when did you start?
Sure. So you're very big into email. And
Yep.
what we have to understand is your client base are, solopreneurs, solo companies, one person, a small group of people, all the way up to midsize, not the big Fortune 500 huge companies. And what we have to recognize is that the founder of these companies, the people running this, are doing this for a reason. Yes, we all have to make money. We all have bills to pay. We're all looking to have a successful company. But you went into this company for a reason because you actually have an internal desire to help your clients succeed in what you do. You're in this for marketing. You're doing this for a reason that is important internally to you. And eventually you're going to be very successful. Maybe you get bought out by some Fortune 500 company and all they care about are the numbers. They're not there to, they're there not to serve their customers. They're there to make money first and foremost. You ever dealt with a large company, you found out that's the case. So how can we help the single person, the small team, the mid-sized company with a founder that started this for a reason? How can we help them drastically improve their email marketing? And I'm going to show you a process. This is what I use to teach dyslexics to read, but it also has proved wildly successful with businesses trying to get their marketing message to be much more precise, much more effective. So when I use universal themes to do that, a universal theme is a human condition that it's across time, across space, across cultures, across everything. And the best way I find to introduce that concept is how to write a movie review. It sounds totally out of left field. Welcome to Dyslexia. If you ever watch Shark Tank, Real dyslexia makes up less than 10% of the population. Half of the sharks are dyslexic. Barbara, Damien, and Mr. Wonderful. So we come up with all these off-the-wall ideas that appear to be out of nowhere, but we have found a way to connect them, put them into something that in a linear format and get it out to everybody else. It's simply what we do. We have a huge advantage in that area. So I'm going to start off by asking you about a movie. I'm going to show you how to write a movie review properly, and then we're going to take that, what we learned there, and then I'm going to show you how to create a message that's going to work fantastic for your email marketing. Are you
Okay.
ready?
Yep.
Okay. So before the show started, I asked you, I said, I need a movie that everybody's seen that is one of your favorite of all times, that you think is one of the best of all times. What movie is that?
The Wolf of Wall Street.
Okay. Now, The Wolf of Wall Street. Now I'm going to ask you something really difficult. I need you to think of a universal theme of The Wolf of Wall Street, one word universal theme that best represents that movie in your opinion. What's that word?
Ambition.
Ambition.
Yep.
Now, let me tell you, this is another idea of marketing, okay? We're going to go and if you look at movie reviews from Ivy League educated movie reviewers when The Wolf of Wall Street came out, all right, what you're going to notice is, and they're working for the major publications, is that they generally tell you this happened, then this happened, then this happened, essentially ruining the movie. It's like you recorded a sports match and then somebody tells you the score before you watch it. What's the point of watching it?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's how you do a movie review properly. What you do is you would take the universal theme of ambition, and you would look at the actors. You pick out the actors you're interested in reviewing. How did they individually do with the universal theme of ambition? How did the director do with the universal theme of ambition? How did the screenwriter do with the universal theme of ambition? You'd put all that together, create your review, and then a person would go through and say, hey, see what you're saying, and based on that, I will watch the movie or not watch it. And if they decide to watch it, you didn't ruin it for them. You told them what it's about through that universal theme. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Here's the problem with that. When you're using the universal theme of ambition, do you see how broad it is?
It is broad.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's very broad. So you can only write a broad universal theme. You can't laser focus target it. And that's the problem, because when we're dealing with marketing, we're not doing back in the days of the 1960s where you would just blanket the airways and blanket your local paper with these ads just trying to get a smidgen to notice you. We are much more laser focused. But what we just described, when you try to apply that universal theme, it's too broad. You can't laser focus. This will literally kill your marketing. So how do we make this better? So I'm going to kind of torture everybody for a moment. I want you to go back to the ultimate messenger of how to write in English speaking history, Shakespeare. So if you went back to high school, and I know I'm bringing up a lot of bad memories, and you look at a standard Shakespearean play, you had a hero. The hero wanted to do something. The hero wanted to do something related to one or more universal themes. And then there was an ultimate villain, a person, a concept, or a combination there too, that tried to stop the hero from accomplishing their goal. They would start having conflict in Act 1. It would escalate through Act 2 and then resolve in Act 3. Sound familiar?
Uh-huh.
So we're going to simplify that version, because this is what Shakespeare found was how to communicate a message that kept people entertained for, depending on the play, hours. Okay. We don't have hours. We don't have minutes. We have seconds. We have to be laser focused. So we're going to simplify this version. And people will say, well, where did you come up with this? I said, well, this is what I teach dyslexics to read and how to write. But it's adaptive by a book called The Craft of Research, which came out in 1995 from the University of Chicago to help students create their doctoral dissertations. It's on context, problem statement, and an original solution, which is basically I'm simplifying that and applying it to here. All right. So what we do is we have a hero. We're going to look at an actual example. So I want you to think of one of your clients that you deal with for email marketing.
Mhm.
Okay. We're going to change their name to protect their identity.
Okay.
All right. What's the client's made up name?
Made up name. Okay. Zob.
Okay, Zob. What is it that Zob wants to do?
He wants to grow his email list.
Okay. Well, you want to grow your email. That's general, but how
Okay.
does he want to grow? What is his why would anybody want to deal with Zob? What does he do what's his secret sauce?
Okay. So he have very specific kind of problem with very specific kind of solution.
Okay, what's the problem? What's the solution?
Okay. He helps coaches get more client without getting on a phone.
Okay, and he has the whole process of doing that.
Yes.
Okay. So what you're going to do, Zob wants to, and you're going to put down not a sentence, not a paragraph.
Mhm.
You're going to work with artificial intelligence. And just so everybody knows my background with this, when OpenAI came up with their $200 a month pro account in December of 2024, I bought it that day. I was one of the few that did. I kept that for a year. I dumped it last December, moved down to Thinking, 5.2 Thinking, because I could get it to think for 8-10 minutes, which is all I needed. I have since moved on to Anthropic Claude Opus 4.6 because 85% of their clients are business people. Our product is in writing. So I moved over to that, finding it to be superior. Use what you want. That's just my background. So what you're going to use, what is Zob? That's his name. What does Zob want to do? You're going to use the artificial intelligence to write out as much as you can. That's not fluff. It's just get as much as out of it as you can.
Mhm.
Once you do that, for each sentence, we're going to go back to the artificial intelligence, and you're going to have this do the grunt work because we're adults. We're not some school kid where they're complaining, you can't use artificial intelligence. It's not right. It's here to save us time. We're
Yeah.
thinking it's doing the grunt work. You're going to tell it for each sentence, find the most important word. And then you're going to do that for each sentence, and you're going to list them out. Tell it to come up with custom definitions for each word based on what you're trying to do. Then what you're going to want to do is work with the AI to decide which one of these is the best word, is the best, most important word. All right. What I recommend is tell it what you're looking to have the AI, what you're looking to accomplish, and have it pick the top 5 or top 10. I generally recommend the top 10 with a custom definition, and then you as the human have to decide. You can't allow AI to do this because we're trying to work with what's in your head while you're doing what you're doing. Okay. So then you pick out the best, most important word. That is like, that's our base universal thing. But just like ambition, for when we're looking at doing a movie review for Wolf of Wall Street, this is too broad. So now that with our base universal theme, you go to your artificial intelligence, say, give me 100 synonyms and custom definitions for this, and it'll do it. And then you say, come up based on what the hero wants to do, pick the top 10, or you can go the top 20. And then you pick the word and the definition that best matches what's in your head. If it's not in that 100, do another 100. If it's not there, keep refining it until you got a definition that best matches what's in your head. If you have to do another 100, who cares? It takes a couple of minutes. It's AI. All right. Once you find the word with a definition that best matches what's in your head,
Okay.
then that's your universal thing. Now, here's the thing now, because this is so precise, because you're never going to find something that perfectly matches what's in your head, but you're going to find something that's pretty close. We can now laser focus on what we want to do. That is the lens that you're going to do anytime you want to do a marketing message. So what you want to do is, what the guy you mentioned, Zob, what he wants to do. Now that he has his universal theme, he can go to AI and say, okay, I want to do an email campaign, but I want to focus it through this universal theme. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's the focus. Come up with a draft. did that draft then, because I always find, personally, when I go through email campaigns or anything else in my marketing, I have 3 modes that I custom created in Opus 4.6. And you can do this with other A models. I just found it works really well with Opus. What I do is once I get done with that, I'll look at it and say, the 3 modes. The first one basically says, what have you catastrophically missed? What did you miss in relation to this in relation to this universal thing, this one word universal thing? And then it'll run through and I'll have it probably go through about 4 to 6 times until it's at 100%. Then my next one is there any way we can make it better in regards to this universal thing? All right. And based on, I call that max correction mode. All right. And I self-created that with Opus 4.6. And there's a protocol, then I'll have it run through that until it's at 100%, another 4 to 6 times. All right, then I'll do what I call full polish mode in regards to that universal thing. And then it goes through and it just tries to correct all the little, polish it up generally. Then it's ready to be sent out.
Okay, so when you send it, like what kind of response did you get?
Well, honestly, most of my marketing now is through podcasts. When I did this initially, what I found is my response rate went up by about 80%.
Okay, okay.
But I'm purposely right now, just so everybody knows, we've met on a platform called Podmatch. So all my time in marketing, I've done 194 podcasts since last April. Okay, I'm doing 3 today. I'm in the place now where I'm just getting everything out there. I thought I was going to stop at 100 podcasts. Now I'm approaching 200. I'll have that probably in the next few days. I'm going to keep going until I hit 300. I'm just noticing a lot of people hit. That's generally where a lot of people are. The top people have done that number of podcasts, and then I'll go back into doing this. But I'm getting a base out there, so if you Google me, everybody knows what's going on. And I'm just I'm having the podcast host go out and send things out and do the social media thing. I have one person that takes what they do and puts it out on my end. But I had, just so everybody knows what my numbers are, I've had 2.8 million social media impressions since last April. Okay. And that's pretty much having the podcasters doing that type of work. They're spreading my message out for me. So I'll be going back to email marketing after that. Plus, I'm putting up my own custom courses for what I do, which is show to parents and teachers how to learn how to teach dyslexic students. And it's going to take me about about another 6 to 8 months before all that is up. So then I'll be going back to email. But generally doing this, when I tested it out, went up about 80%. People that I've taught it to have gone, they've had 50, 100% better conversion rates.
Okay, so for our listeners who want to connect with you, where can they go?
The easiest thing to do is just go to Dyslexia Classes. That's Dyslexia Classes with an S, dyslexiaclasses.com. Click on it. There's a contact me form. Just fill it out, and it's a half an hour of free time. Doesn't cost you anything. We can discuss anything you need.
You have done so many things. So with all the success you have, which personality trait would you attribute majority of your success to?
I'm dyslexic, okay?
Yeah.
I went to law school with a first grade reading and writing level, and I had to conquer that thing. All right. I had a choice when I was in elementary school. I could either become extremely resilient and work massively hard, or I could just give up and come shattered. I decided to really work hard. And now that AI came out, I can tell you that I do more work now in a day than I used to do in a year. I'm not joking. I spend $200 a month on Anthropic, Claude Opus 4.6, and I'll have 3 windows going at a time in between the podcasts. All right. I create a whole stack of work of taking an idea and transforming it into a polished professional report. All right. And I'm just sending out, and people love the work that I'm doing. I could never do this before. Everything that I touched had to be reviewed by somebody. And that was usually a minimum of 12 to 24 hours turnaround time.
Mm-hmm.
Every email, I had to hire a professional to correct my writing. Everything. You guys have no idea how nice you had, but now with the AI, this is fantastic. Now we're at a point, we're recording this in February of 2020, 26. Opus came out, because of November 1st, what worked then changed December 1st when Opus 4.5 came out. We went from working with the AI to having the AI doing most of the work or doing the work. Now, when 4.6 came out in February, what worked in January isn't working anymore. Now, most people they're going to having agents doing the work. I just found that the quality of writing that they produce is nowhere near as good as what I do with my customized talking to the AI, coming up with doing a deep research report, confirming what we came up with, and then going through creating a draft and then going through these 3 corrective notes. I'm finding the agents just can't produce that level of work yet. When they can, I'll turn it over, but we're nowhere near that. But a lot of people for like coding and things are having the agents doing the work. Well, things are just changing so rapidly. I spend a half an hour to an hour a day on AI. Why? Because I want my kids, when they graduate, to be able to go and get a job. And if they can't use this effectively, they're done. But what I found is once we show them how to do the full craft of research in high school, is when they go out into the real world, if they know nothing about AI, they know precisely, they'll just talk to, how do I go through context, getting everybody on the same page? How do I come up with a problem statement that actually matters and that I can do? How do I then come up with an innovative solution? Well, they already know how to do this manually, but they start using the artificial intelligence and they just figure out how to do it much more efficiently. And then once they've done that, and it takes a couple of weeks, then they're training their peers on how to do it, even though they hardly touched AI beforehand. And the solution to this came out from a book that came out 30 years ago called The Craft of Research. I just combined it with this book on overcoming dyslexia from Yale. And if you look, that's dyslexia. This back part of your brain, think of this as kindergarten through high school. I have nothing going on. You guys have massive neural activity, but the front part of my brain's 2.5 times overactive. Think of that as grad school. Think of that as advanced thinking. I have 2.5 times the activity. All right. That deals with word analysis followed by articulation, which is kind of what I showed you earlier.
Mhm.
Dyslectics, once we organize our thinking, because it's so rapid, there's no organization. Once we properly train our brain how to process information properly, it's such a massive advantage. It's just unfair for example, when you look at Shark Tank, half the sharks are dyslectic, when really dyslexia makes up less than 10% of the population.
Okay, so for our listeners who want to read your book, where can they go?
But we're still working on it. We're in the editing stage. So we'll have that out hopefully in a few months. If you ever written a book, you're ready to publish, and then you send it to one last editor, and they say, what she literally told me was, excellent book, excellent foundation. You're at about 55 to 60%. I have to go through and not only do line by line editing, I have to do a little more than that. It'll take me 1 to 3 months. And we thought we were done.
Yeah.
So that's for anybody who's ever thought about publishing a book. It's going to cost you $10,000 to $15,000, and it's fun. But
Yeah.
if you want to be considered an expert, you have to get it out there. This is for anybody. So let me just quickly walk people through my editorial process. First thing that I did is I went on Fiverr and I went to what they call Fiverr Choice for their author for their ghostwriters. I started off with a homeschooling mom because that's my audience. And first thing it is, I wrote the book with AI. At the time, it was O3 Pro. Then I sent it to her, and she completely rewrote everything, which is what you want. Completely nothing was the same. Then I looked and I said, what I do is very sophisticated. I don't think she caught the level of cognitive, how advanced what I do is. So then I went to another Fiverr Choice ghostwriter, and she was a med student or a resident or something along those lines, very bright. She rewrote it with a much more sophisticated air. Then I went and I got a co-author, and then she rewrote it and had it edited by 3 people. And then I thought we were done. They said, okay, I talked to another podcaster who did 2 TEDx talks, published numerous books on her own, very successful. And I asked her to look at it, and she said, oh, you're at 55 to 60%. The bones are great, but there's a lot of small, and that's what's required. It is so insane. That's why it's so expensive to do it. So she's doing that editing, right? For when it came time for the image, I created my avatar for my best client is 29,000 words. I used that to have Opus 4.6 come up with a very long prompt for Google's and banana, whatever their image creation thing is. They would create the they would create they would create it, the image, and then I'd run it back through, and I kept running it through my avatar, and then I slapped that on the book cover. Well, it's a placeholder. The actual editor that I'm using said, "Well, we have to do something better, and here's some ideas." So the AI can get you a good draft, but then you need humans to take it from there. But when I handed off the book initially, where I just wrote the whole thing, and it's just made it so much easier for them to work with. I find I had to go through multiple ghostwriters and bring on a co-author to just make this work.
Yeah.
And now we're in the final edits because I'm literally, we should be in the, and just for people for marketing, what you do is you put it on Kindle for $9.99. We're going to put the soft cover on for $17.97 and a hardcover for $27.97. Then we're going to take all the money and we're going to put it back into into Facebook. I'm sorry, Amazon ads until we max that out. And then we're going to do it on Facebook until we max that out. So we're going to be spending about $1,800 a month on ads a month. And that should get us about 10, 13 books sold a day. We're going to wait for the Audible edition because it's going to cost me about $3,000-$4,000 for a 20,000 word book to have a national narrator do that. I want somebody who will just buy the book because the narrator put it on. The narrator narrated it. All right. And then with all that, we might get up to about 15 books a day. What does that mean? That means we'll be in the top 10, top 5 to top 10 of our Kindle category. So what you want to do is become an Amazon Kindle bestselling author. And then you can put that on your, you want to do a sprint to be the number 1 for even an hour. Then you can put that designation on everything from now on. And if people want to work with you, they get their book. It really helps before they do a major project with you. Then the next thing you want to do is go on and get a TEDx speech. Okay. That's a whole nother animal. But once you get on that I created a 47-page report on how to do that working with Opus 4.5 and now 4.6. It helped me. I've redrafted my speech, edited over 60 times. And now when the humans look at it, they said there's just a little bit more. And now, and it's just going through that process to get on the TEDx stage. Once you do that and you have a book, things really explode for you.
Okay, Russell, thank you so much for saying that and sharing your wisdom. It was really great having you.
Thanks for having me.